Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm going to be doing my recommendations and TBR for my November 2020 monthly priority, which is Native American History Month in the US and the IndigAThon Readathon. I'll have all sorts of information linked below about the IndigAthon if you're interested in checking it out. It's going to be running for all of November. There's a bunch of different prompts, so it's a really great readathon. If you're not familiar with my monthly priorities, I will also link a playlist about those below. But basically, what I'm going to do today is just recommend a couple of books by Indigenous authors that I have read in the past year and loved, and then talk about my TBR for November. So first, let me give my recommendations, beginning with Fried Bread by Kevin Noble-Maillard and Juana Martinez-Neal. Kevin Noble-Maillard is of the Seminole Nation, and this book is an absolutely beautiful children's book. If you haven't read children's books recently, I think you should give it a try because they actually have a lot to offer. Not only is the artwork just really adorable in this, but the content is actually really meaningful. What the author does in this is he explores the way that fry bread acts as an important part of a lot of Native American community cultures about the way that it is related to tradition and heritage and family, and it actually tackles some pretty interestingly tough topics, such as the Trail of Tears, in a way that is appropriate for a kind of preschool audience. It's just so well done, and I definitely recommend this book. Next, I'd like to recommend This Place, 150 Years Retold. This is a collection by various different authors of graphic stories. Now, some of these are nonfiction stories, some of these are fiction, some of these are fictionalized versions of historical events. Some of these are a little bit more mythology based. So there's kind of a whole range of genres within this, but all of these are graphic works by Canadian Indigenous authors telling about the history of Indigenous life in Canada, and in particular talking about, I think, a lot of the political issues regarding Indigenous communities in Canada. This book was so good. Not only is the artwork for each different story done so differently and so beautifully, but the way that also a timeline of like laws that were made in Canada that were really pretty awful, the way that that affected the Native communities, the way that things like residential schools affected them. This collection is so good, and if you want to learn about some history as well as some aspects of the experiences and cultures of a lot of these different tribes in Canada, I think that this collection is just so worth picking up. And lastly, I'd like to recommend Post-Colonial Love Poem by Natalie Diaz. Natalie Diaz is Mojave and Latinx and queer. This is a poetry collection that I heard about from Jocelyn at Yogi with a Book, who I will link below. And I think that it is really beautiful, not only in terms of just the imagery and the language that is used in the poetry, but also in the way that this tackles both kind of issues of queer love. Tons of the poems in here are really just kind of letters to her lover, but also a lot of issues related to being Native, to some of the ways that she relates to different aspects, like her relationship to water, which is very important in her community, as well as the way that having been colonized and having really a genocide enacted against her people has affected them. So this is a very political poetry collection. It's all about identity. It's also filled with love. It's just such a beautiful collection, really well done, and I definitely recommend it if you like poetry. So now moving on to my TBR for November. I have 7 books that I would like to prioritize, although I probably won't get to all of them. My goal is to get to at least 5 of them. I also may read quite a few other books by Indigenous authors that aren't on this list, just depending on my mood and what I end up picking up, but I'd like to get to as many of these as I can. Also, I am going to be using the prompts from the IndigAthon. They have a bingo board with a bunch of different prompts on it, so I'll talk about what what prompts my book satisfy. I will say that all of the books that I have chosen satisfy the non-5CT or Civilized Tribes prompt. So I'm not going to repeat that for every single one, but know that they all satisfy that prompt. So first on my TBR is When My Brother Was an Aztec by Natalie Diaz. I really loved post-colonial love poems, so I wanted to read this other collection by Diaz. Diaz is, again, Mojave, Latinx, and queer. Also, this is another book that I'd heard about from Jocelyn at Yogi with a Book, and I'm really excited to read this one, especially because I think that this might deal with some of the family relationships that Diaz has. I believe her brother maybe had some issues with drug addiction. I'm just very curious about what this collection is going to be about. This satisfies the prompts of intersectionality because Diaz is Latinx and queer. And also it may satisfy the prompt of non-bookish media, if poetry counts as non-bookish media. I'm not super sure. Next on my TBR is No Man's Land by A.J. Fitzwater, who is a Maori New Zealand author. This is a book that I heard about from Rachel at Kalanadi. She did an entire standalone review of this, so I will link that below. And this is a queer World War II historical fiction about a woman who goes to work on kind of like a farm during the war when kind of all the men are away, including her brother. And it also involves some magic. So I am just super intrigued about everything that this book has to offer, so I really want to read it. It satisfies the prompts of intersectionality because the author and characters are queer, other than US because this is the Maori indigenous people, so that's based in New Zealand. Also new to me because I've never read A.J. Fitzwater. Next on my TBR is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, who is Oke-Awinga and Black. This is an epic pre-Columbian American-inspired fantasy. I love epic fantasy. This is the first book in a trilogy. It sounds completely up my alley. It's got all sorts of interesting sounding magic and culture. It's got crow gods, I believe. Ashley at Don't Have a Degree in Reading did an entire standalone review of this, so I will link it below, but it sounds epic. Also, Rebecca Roanhorse, I have heard her speak at a number of different conventions this year, and I love everything that she has to say about this book, so I'm really, really interested in picking it up. I can't wait to read it. This satisfies the prompt of intersectionality because Rebecca Roanhorse is also Black. Another book I'm looking forward to, where I have heard the author speak at conventions and absolutely loved everything she's had to say, is Alatsue by Darcy Little Badger. Darcy Little Badger is Lipinapachi and also asexual, and that is also what the character of this is. So this is a YA contemporary fantasy where there is a girl who can speak to the ghosts of dead animals and is trying to investigate what happened to her cousin who died under mysterious circumstances. I really love everything that I've heard Darcy Little Badger say. I love also some short stories by her that I've read, and I just cannot wait to read this. It's one of my anticipated new releases this year, and I'm just super excited to get to it. It satisfies the prompt of intersectionality because Darcy Little Badger is asexual, as is the main character. Next on my TBR is Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, edited by Hope Nicholson. This is a collection of queer indigenous SFF short stories. So basically awesomeness. I'm pretty sure that I heard about this either from Njeri at ONYX pages or Yvette at BookCave, who I will link below. And I've actually already read one of these short stories from this online, which was Nehle by Darcy Little Badger, and I loved it. So I am super, super excited to read this collection. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. It satisfies the prompts of intersectionality because these are all queer authors, as well as new to me because a bunch of these authors are new to me. Next on my TBR is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waugeshig Rice, who is Anishinaabe and part of the Wasauksing First Nation in Canada. This is a book that I have heard really great things about. Rachel at Kalanadi, as well as Reija at the book Finch, both of whom I will link below, read this and really liked this, and Sush, my husband, read this and really liked this and even got me an ebook copy of it. So I am super excited to read this, even even though it's a little bit scary. So this is a post-apocalyptic sort of almost mystery or thriller where there is a remote community in Canada who is kind of dealing with suddenly everything else, all their connection to the outside world going silent. And it's like in the dead of winter, and it sounds just really creepy and atmospheric, which I think could work for this season. This will satisfy the prompt of new to me because I have not read this author before. And last on my TBR is Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wald Kimmerer, who is a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. I heard about this book from Andrea at Infinite Text, who I will link below, and I have been wanting to read it for the past year, which I have had on hold the entire year. So it finally came in, and I'm really excited to read it. I'm also doubling this up with my Nonfiction November TBR, which I will link below in case you're interested. And I am really excited about this because it's going to be nature writing, and I am so in the mood for nature writing right now. And it's all about kind of what we can learn from plants. I'm just super excited. This satisfies the prompts of new to me. Okay, so those are my recommendations and TBR for the IndigAthon. If you guys have read any of these books, if you have any thoughts, any comments, any recommendations for me, anything at all, go ahead and leave me a comment down below.